Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And I am so psyched because I have Sam from FPL Family here to preview the Spurs versus Chelsea London derby. It's a massive game, so of course I had to get a massive guest. So in this match preview, we're going to be looking at the team news, opponent analysis. Sam is going to give us some key insights about Spurs as well, go through some predicted 11 and what we think is going to happen. So make sure to stay tuned. Sam, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's all good. How are you?
I'm doing good, like feeling very nervous for the Chelsea game tomorrow.
Not confident.
Spurs Chelsea game tomorrow, but we'll get all into that. So before we get started, just want to remind everybody, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment your score predictions as well, because it does help the channel out loads. And let's get straight into it. I want to jump into team news. So what's the deal with Spurs team news? Any injuries that we should be wary about?
So Udogi's still massively doubtful for tomorrow night, and that will obviously have a bit of an impact on how Spurs play defensively, particularly as it looks like we're going to be missing Ben Davies as well. So we might be seeing kind of a third choice out there on that side. My suspicion is he'll do what he did against Crystal Palace and put Emerson Royale out on that side. So we'll have Royale and Porro, which from an attacking perspective actually might be quite good for Spurs, because that will, both those players are very aggressive in the way that they play and in their attacking football. So I'm expecting that to be the only change that we see really when it comes to Spurs from the game against Crystal Palace last week.
For Chelsea team news, we do have news that Mykhailo Mudryk is back in full training after dealing with a muscle injury, so potentially we could see him starting. We saw Badiashile and Reece James come back to the starting 11 versus Blackburn, so they are fit and available to start. Will be interesting to see if Poch starts Reece James in this London derby. And then we still have an absolute load of injured players with Nkuku, Lavia, Chalova, Borja, Fofana, and Chukwuemeka all still out injured. So taking a look at Spurs a bit, you guys have been doing fantastic. No losses in the Premier League. A win would take you top of the league, out of the table. So what do you think has been the reason for Spurs' fantastic form so far this year?
Well, Postecoglou's made all the difference, hasn't he? I think over the last couple of seasons, we've had managers who, well, since Poch really, who have kind of come in and wanted to dictate their style of play on a Spurs squad that hasn't really suited that. So the likes of Conte, Mourinho, even Nuno Espirito Santo to a certain degree, they brought with them their own tactical decisions. And those tactical decisions, they just didn't work with the Spurs players and the way that the team was structured and set up. Going into this season, Postecoglou wants to play this kind of very high attacking football, very fast paced, moving the ball around quickly. Now, that's something that in my lifetime supporting Spurs, I haven't ever really seen us do successfully, but we've always had the personnel to do it. It's just we've never moved the ball that fast, and it would be a case of go one goal up, sit back, try and hold out till the end of the game. And that's just not the way Spurs play anymore. Lee and I took the children in the summer to the friendly against Shakhtar Donetsk. And it was funny because Maddison gave an interview the other day and he was talking about that game. And he was saying, at half time, we were 1-0 up. We'd played not great. And I remember sitting and turning to Lee and being like, this isn't Ange ball as I was expecting it to be, having watched what we played like in Australia and in Singapore on the tour. But the second half, they came out and they were dominant. They were so attacking. They weren't giving Shakhtar a moment on the ball. And Maddison in the interview last week was talking about how that's really stuck with all of them because Postecoglou was mad. Like he was like, this is not how I play. It's attack. You score a goal, great, you go again. You score a goal, great, you go again. And that's what we've been seeing from Spurs this season. And it's so different to anything that we've done before. The defenders look solid. The signing of Van der Ven has made all the difference. Giving Romero the captain's armband or the vice captain's armband, that leadership that he now has means that we've got these two rocks at the centre of the defence. They're not giving away much in terms of chances. They're not hardly fouling, which is highly unusual from Romero based upon last season. Very, very few cards across the Spurs team either. We're not seeing a lot of yellow cards coming from those defensive players. So Postecoglou and the tactics that he's bringing has kind of refreshed Spurs. And I do think that actually, as much as I was pained when Harry left in the summer, I do remember saying in multiple streams that I was doing at that point, I think for Spurs, it's probably for the best, because the way Postecoglou's team play, it's not really Harry's style of football. And what we've seen since he left is the players that we have got have really stepped up, and they're playing incredibly well.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when you have a player that's so integral to the team, you can't imagine losing them, but then you almost play as more of a team. And I feel like with Chelsea, we saw something similar when Hazard left and then they won the Champions League, which is something that I would have never expected. So kind of going off of that, who do you think are going to be the key players for Spurs in this game?
Well, I mean, everything good that happens in terms of the Spurs attack comes through James Maddison. And in the games where we've been less effective this season, the opposition have kind of dealt with Maddison and they've tried to keep him quiet. And I think that's going to be key for Chelsea. If you can keep Maddison quiet, which is very difficult, that will have an impact on the way that Spurs play. Obviously, Son, I'm expecting to still play in the number 9. He's added this ability to just put tap-ins in, which is something that we've never really seen from him before, putting himself in really nice positions. So I think those two are going to be key. And then what happens with the defenders, if Romero and Van de Ven can continue to be solid in front of Vicario, who, what a signing he has been for us. It's transformed the goalkeeper situation. And we're playing out so much better from the back than we ever did under Hugo. I think it's going to be that spine of the team that's going to be all important.
Yeah, and kind of looking ahead to this match, it's a big game for Poch as well because he's returning back to Spurs after having managed them for so many years. It's one of the key storylines going into the game. And how do you think the reception is going to be for him going back?
I mean, I'm going to be there on Monday night. I'll certainly give him a warm welcome. I think, it was only, 4 or 5 months ago that Spurs fans were really hoping that the Poch was going to come back and take over. And obviously that didn't happen in the end. He went to Chelsea. We've got Postecoglou. And now I think all Spurs fans look at it and go, this was definitely the right thing for us. Like having Postecoglou instead is a good thing for us. It's that the change that we needed. And I sat here and did multiple things in the summer. I was like, if Chelsea give Poch time, he will be brilliant for them. And I think on Monday evening, he'll get a nice warm welcome from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then we'll immediately go into singing about Postecoglou again, which is kind of how we go this season. So, but I'm expecting him to get a warm welcome from the Spurs fans.
I'm glad that you say that because I've been saying for like every single week that Chelsea have been playing, like just give Poch time. There's signs. The team is looking good. It's not going to take a couple of months. Like it's going to take a season or 2 seasons to get back to the Chelsea that we know. So before in Poch's press conference, there was a little bit, at least on Twitter, I saw a lot of people coming at him for something that he said about Spurs being title contenders. What do you think about that statement? Like, I didn't think it was that deep. I'm like, it's a fact. If they win, they're in first. They are title contenders. Like, I didn't see anything wrong with that. But what do you make of it?
I mean, he can't do wrong for doing right, can he? Because, he said that in the summer, he was talking about how, Chelsea are the best team in Europe and the best team in London. And that, of course, got a huge reaction because I think he said that on day 2 of taking over at Chelsea. And the Spurs fans were like, whoa, hang on a minute. Like, that's a bit disrespectful. So I think whatever he says, he wasn't really going to be able to win. But the reality is, Spurs fans, Postecoglou, the Spurs team, they'll all talk it down. We will all go, no, we're not in the, we're just living the dream. We're just going to keep doing our thing. We're going to keep playing our game. No pressure. This is supposed to be our rebuild year, start from scratch, new players, new manager, new fresh start. Very different Spurs team. We're 10 game weeks in. Because Arsenal lost this weekend, we're now the only team that haven't lost so far this season. So it's difficult sometimes not to kind of get carried away and go, is this going to be the season where we are actually, we actually follow through on the promises that we've seen over the last few years? Maybe it is. But I think, what he said is true. If he just sat there and said, Liverpool are title contenders this season, just ahead of a game against Liverpool, I don't think anyone would have said anything about it. It's just that the Spurs connection is there. And we're going to be top of the league if we beat you. So it would be weird if he said they're definitely not going to win the league this year.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was thinking about is, imagine he said like anything poor against Spurs, like they're just going to use that pre-game to get the team fired up and be like, look what he's saying. Like, let's go show. Like, I don't know. I just think that it was a respectful response. I didn't really think anything of it. But that's me. Uh, so going into the tactics, how do you think Spurs are going to approach this match? Playing at home against Chelsea, a side that like to keep possession.
Yeah, and in the past, we would have let you have possession, we'd have sat back and we'd have tried to counter-attack. But that's not how we play anymore. We like to have the ball, we like to dominate possession, we like to attack at all costs and quickly. Now, that will make, I think, for a really interesting match on Monday evening, because I don't see Poch adapting his tactics to suit us. And we certainly won't change the way that we play just because it's Chelsea that have arrived. You know, we've seen that so far against Arsenal. We went to the Emirates. We played exactly our kind of football. We did the same when Manchester United came to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier in the season. We did the same against Liverpool. We'll play this kind of attacking football. It will give you space, but it's whether you can make the most of that space, because what we do have is that really solid core in the two centre-backs and the goalie. So Chelsea's weakness so far this season hasn't been getting to the goal or creating the chances. It's been finishing the ones that you've created. And one of our major strengths has been stopping goals from going in, making multiple saves from the goalkeeper, allowing the chances, but being really solid defensively. So I think you'll get plenty of opportunity. It's just, is one of the Chelsea players going to actually start finishing the chances that we have? If you had a number 9, a proper one, I'd be concerned about you coming, because I think you'd get in behind and you get some chances. But without that solid striker up there, you're kind of reliant on somebody playing in the wrong position, you know, maybe a Sterling or a Cole Palmer getting up there. Not that they're bad assets, but it's not really their game.
Yeah. Definitely. I hope for my sake, because I took a punt on Cole Palmer for my fantasy. So I am hoping for my sake, like, please let this punt pay off. But that kind of leads me to Chelsea's possible starting 11. So just to go through my thoughts, I do think that we're going to see Sanchez in goal. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. And I think we're going to see largely the same team that we've been seeing from Chelsea. One of the things that I've liked with Poch is that I feel that he hasn't been chopping and changing the team so much. That was one of my major criticisms of Graham Potter and Frank Lampard when they were taking over last season, is that we just had a different starting 11 every single week. It was impossible to predict, and it must have been super difficult for the players to gain chemistry and understanding with one another, having somebody different next to them or being in a different position themselves. So I think we're going to play in a 4-3-3-ish formation. I think Reece James starts this game. He's one of Chelsea's best players, so when he's fit, I do think that he's going to start, might come off around the 60-minute mark. And then Thiago Silva, Coel, Cucurella as the back four, and then Caicedo, Enzo in the pivot, Gallagher sitting slightly ahead of them, and then Palmer, Jackson, and Sterling. Possible that Mykhailo Mudryk comes in for Jackson and then Sterling moves to the false 9 if he's fit enough, but I have a feeling Poch isn't going to throw him into one of the biggest games of the season. So who of those Chelsea players, like, are you maybe scared of the most, or who do you think would potentially do the most damage or be like Chelsea's strongest asset?
I mean, it's been Palmer in recent weeks that's been the kind of the most impressive. He's been the one. And I was watching him the other week and thinking, actually, his leadership qualities are there as well. Like, he's out there directing people around and going, no, you go there, you do this. And I thought, actually, for a youngster, that's incredibly impressive, because he's come in and kind of really asserted his authority on that Chelsea team. He's on the penalties. And I thought that was fascinating the other week when Sterling tried to take it off him and he was absolutely having none of it. He was like, no, it's mine. And Enzo was obviously backing him up. I think he's been the kind of the highlight of that Chelsea team for me. I think, you know, you've had so many injuries. Like in pre-season, I was super impressed by Chelsea, and the Nkunku Jackson combination up top was working so nicely, particularly in the summer series that the Premier League did this season. Like it was looking really good for Chelsea, and you had the Chilwell and Reece James stuff really working nicely, and then, you know, the new system, a bit like at Spurs, right? New captain, new vice captain, like let's go again under a new manager. And then the injuries just came and they just kept coming. And as a result of that, you're kind of playing people in positions where they don't really want to be, and it doesn't really suit their game. And I think Sterling, when he plays in the false nine, for me, that weakens him. And I'd rather see him in that kind of wide position, because we know he can be really dangerous from there. So going into a game against Spurs, as a Spurs fan, I would like him playing in the number 9 because I think he's less effective there. If I had him in FPL, I'd want him out on the wing where he's much more useful.
The thing with Sterling as well is that he can be such a brilliant player, but I just don't feel like he's shown that week in, week out. He's been so inconsistent.
Yeah.
And it's quite frustrating because we know the type of player that he can be. And when he's on it, he can score 2 goals. He can be at the heart of everything that Chelsea's doing. When he's not on it, it just feels like a hindrance because the attack breaks down. So it's super frustrating. I think a lot of Chelsea fans are waiting for Nkunku to come back because that link up between him and Jackson did look really promising in preseason. People are potentially saying that maybe he takes Jackson's spot because Cole Palmer has been playing so well. So it'll be interesting to see how Poch fits him in there. But what do you think are going to be some of the key battles for this match? Because there are a couple that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, whether your centre backs can deal with Son, I think is going to be key. Have they got the strength? Because so far he's very tricky, Sonny, and he won't necessarily stay in the middle where they're expecting him to, particularly if he plays with Richarlison as well. They often like switcheroo, and Son will find himself slightly further out sometimes, then he'll be in the middle. How the midfielders deal with James Maddison will be key, like whether the likes of Enzo can dampen out the Maddison threat, because he's pacey, he's quick. If they give away free kicks, that's going to be very dangerous. So they're going to have to be really mindful of how they deal with that. And then up top, it's going to be whether the guys that you eventually play in that kind of false 9, because somebody's probably, unless they play Jackson, somebody's going to be in a false 9. Can that person overcome the strength of Van der Ven? Because Van der Ven's, he's super pacey. I would expect that whoever is up top for Chelsea is kind of man-marked by Mickey, with Romero then able to come forward slightly more. So, yeah, there's going to be some kind of key battlegrounds, but I expect it to be in the penalty boxes, apart from maybe Enzo and Maddison in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I just have a premonition that I'm going to be clipping that up. Like Chelsea are going to concede from a free kick. It's going to be like a Maddison free kick.
We both got him in FPL, so that'll be all right for us.
Yeah, for FPL, it's okay. I'm so torn because I'm yes, I need Maddison points, but I need Chelsea to win. So it's just so conflicting.
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? And I think, normally when Chelsea come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or Old White Hart Lane, I'm never very confident because Chelsea normally come, they beat us. We also don't have a very great record at Stamford Bridge either. So normally the games roll in against Chelsea, and I think, oh, here we go. Can we? But this season, it does feel different. And there's a real, it was when Postecoglou said most managers like to make their home stadium a fortress. We are turning ours into a nightclub. And I thought, yeah, can Chelsea deal with the noise that there's going to be on Monday evening? Because it's going to be loud in there. And that will drive the Spurs team forward. What impact will that have on the Chelsea team? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think from the outside, it just seems that there's such a togetherness from the team. And the fact that you haven't lost in the Premier League yet this season kind of just propels you forward and gives you the belief okay, we can do this. We can beat the big teams. We can get results. And that's all really positive. Meanwhile, Chelsea have just been so up and down, and we feel like we're going well, and then something happens and an individual mistake happens, and then we're just not being consistent enough. So on that note, what's your score prediction? Dare I ask?
I think Spurs will win. I do think Spurs will win the game. I think it will take a very, very big performance from Chelsea on Monday evening. They're going to have to come, be confident and play and commit to playing the Chelsea style of play, and commit to going forward, and hope that the defence can deal with the Spurs attack as it comes. I kind of sit on the 2-1, 3-1. I think Chelsea might nick a goal, but I don't know where it comes from. And that's hard as a Chelsea fan to know who's scoring these goals for us. At least for us, I'm kind of like, well, we've got Madders, we've got Son, Richie's there as well. There's Kulusevski. There's plenty of opportunity for goals. Chelsea, that's the thing that's lacking, and because of that, I think it's a Spurs win.
Yeah, I think we're really sorely missing that player that's just going to score. I would even say 10 goals, like 10, 15, 20 goals in a season for us. We haven't had that consistently since Eden Hazard left, and we're kind of still looking for that replacement. But Sam, thank you so much for coming on. I really
Thank you for having me.
Your insight was absolutely amazing and everything that I hoped and wished for. So I really, really appreciate it. And any last closing words? Let everybody know where they can find you.
So yeah, on all kinds of social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, as we're supposed to call it now. We're at FPL Family. I also do the official FPL pod for the Premier League every week. I'll be on Off the Bench as well on Tuesday. That's the other Premier League podcast. You can find us on Sky Sports News, on the fantasy show, everywhere. Anywhere that you want to talk about fantasy football, you'll find me.
Anywhere and everywhere. And I really need those tips, to be honest, because my fantasy team is just going down the drain. But make sure to link all of Sam's socials down in the description box down below. So please do follow her and Lee, because they are super insightful and give amazing fantasy advice. While you're at it, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, drop it a like, comment what you think is going to happen, what Chelsea XI do you want to see, who's Spurs' most important player that we need to shut down, and what's your score prediction for the match. It is a big one. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever time you're watching this, and until next time, I'm out. Bye.